If you're trying to figure out exactly where along the Emerald Coast or the Florida Panhandle that you're looking to move to, you're just not quite sure, this is the video for you. Stick around. What is going on? My name is Andrew Armstrong with the Emerald Group here at eXp Realty, and if you're trying to figure out what city to move in along the Emerald Coast or in the Panhandle of Florida, as a lot of people know it as, then this is the video for you. We're going to be discussing 7 different cities, kind of comparing them together, just going over like kind of an overall down and dirty on what each of these cities are about, so that hopefully if you're in the beginning portions of your search, this will help you figure out exactly where you might want to move to, or at least give you a direction to hone in on, so that when you're watching some of our other videos, you can definitely pinpoint which city you want to go in. And speaking of that, if you are thinking about moving to this area, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tap that little bell so that you'll be notified every single time we do a new video. We're doing tons and tons of videos and people are reaching out to us all the time. So if that sounds like you, all of our contact information is also on the screen. If we can help, please reach out, call, text, email, carrier pigeon, smoke signal, however you want to get a hold of us. We'll be here when you're ready. Ooh. All right, that was quite a bit there. The 7 different cities that we're going to be discussing today will be Navarre Gulf Breeze area, Fort Walton Beach, Destin, Miramar, 30A, Niceville, and Crestview. So those are the 7. I know technically there are some little subsets in those. We're going to be bulking some of those together. And then there are also Pensacola, other cities, Pensacola and Panama City Beach, which we're going to leave those out. There's just a lot going on there. So we're going to do standalone videos just for those in the future. But for now, let's get into these 7 videos. This is going to be great for anybody that's just starting their search. We're not really sure where to pinpoint yet. If maybe you're moving to this area, maybe you're military PCSing, maybe you're not, and you're just moving to the area, that's fine. This is going to give you a pretty good overview. Now, the first city that I want to get into is kind of my go-to, my place where I like to live, and that's Fort Walton Beach. It's located right between Eglin Air Force Base and Hurlburt Field, right in between Destin and Navarre, right smack dab in between Pensacola and Panama City Beach. It's approximately 22,000 people. If you start adding in some of the subsets like Mariester and Shalimar, that population gets a little bit higher, but for the most part, it's around 22,000 people in population. Now, you're going to have a dense urban feel when it comes to Fort Walton Beach. And of course, there are lots of restaurants, bars, things to do, parks, a ton of stuff to do in Fort Walton Beach. As you guys, for those of you that are watching our channel, as you guys are seeing, there are tons of videos on it. We got stuff, there's always something to do in Fort Walton Beach. There's a ton of activities, so you'll never be kind of left out there. In fact, I'm not really going to keep saying that for each area that we have here. The only real place, I mean, they're each going to be a little bit different, but there is just a ton of stuff to do in the areas in general. So I'm just going to blanket that statement along the Emerald Coast. Every city we're talking about today has a lot going on as far as the actual city themselves. So I'm just going to blanket statement that, and then we'll move on. And now when we talk about living here along the Emerald Coast here in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, you've got an average home price of around $365,000, which if you were purchasing with 20% down, assuming normal taxes and insurance, nothing too outrageous, you're not buying a house that needs like crazy insurance or anything, that would put your payment at around $1,600 per month. Now, compare that to the average rent, which is just shy of $1,700 per month. It's actually about $1,695 as far as I can tell. It makes it a little bit cheaper to purchase in Fort Walton Beach than it does to rent. So if you're kind of on the fence, you'll have a little bit more bang for your buck there. All in all, you're generally going to have more bang for your buck buying anyway. I know I'm a realtor, so my opinion is a little bit biased there, but even in some of these cities where the rent is cheaper, which there are a couple on our list, it still doesn't really make sense in the long term with equity and everything else. But hypothetically, if you just wanted to come down here and rent to try it out for 6 months, see if you like the people, for a year, however long it is, see if you like the area, then it would be about $1,700 a month in Fort Walton. Now, I've got to be very careful when I talk about schools, crime, all of that stuff, so I am just going to use other websites that go through there. I've got my own opinions on these things, but as a real estate agent, I'm not really supposed to give those up, which is kind of ludicrous in my opinion. But, you know, there's all these fair housing rules we got to follow and things like that. But according to niche.com, the school system here in Fort Walton Beach is rated an A-. I've not heard too many terrible things. In fact, most of it's been pretty good, but my opinion doesn't really matter here. Now, as far as crime, I'm not going to touch on that anywhere in this video at all. You guys, there's a ton of tools out there you guys can go look at. I don't want to risk, saying the wrong thing, somebody taking it out of context or anything like that. But just note, along the Emerald Coast, I don't know of any city that I would feel unsafe in personally. That is just a, blanket, like that's just me giving my opinion. So I think any of it's really safe. In any city, there's always, worse parts of town where there's, other things going on, some shady things, maybe more crime, maybe more, people getting caught for things. But as a whole, most of the cities, in fact, all of the cities on our list are pretty good. I would feel comfortable, but that's just me. Now, the median income in Fort Walton Beach is about $60,000, which does not surprise me. Let me clarify, I am surprised it's not a little bit higher because it is very heavy military. And even though the enlisted folks might not be making as much as the officers are, and there's a lot of people living in this area, so I would have figured that number to be slightly higher. But according to niche.com, it's about 68,000, really like 58,000 and some change. Which, given the housing prices, the cost of living, we've got a ton of videos on that, that makes kind of sense, right? It's perfectly livable. It's perfectly fine to live out here on 60,000 per year. All right, now let's head over a little east. Wait, to you guys, that would be... Okay, that would be, east. So headed a little bit east, where we've got Navarre, Florida. Now, Navarre has approximately 37,000 people living in it at any given time, and it's more of the suburban feel. So although a lot of it is suburban style, there are going to be portions that are a little bit mixed, so please keep that in mind. Now, the average home price right here in Navarre is about $420,000 as of the time of shooting this video. All of the numbers that I'm using are actually from our multiple listing service. They are not from a website, which are historically wildly inaccurate. Particularly some of the ones that I searched for this video were really, really off. But it's about $420,000 as of the last 3 months of sold properties. That feels pretty high to me. I kind of played around with the numbers in the multiple listing service because it does feel high. If I had to guess, I would assume somewhere between like 350, 375. But nonetheless, the numbers said about 420. So keep in mind, we do have waterfront properties here that does skew those numbers up a little bit. But when it comes to a mortgage at $420,000, that would put your mortgage somewhere around that $1,850 range. Of course, all of this depends on, all the external factors, but I'm giving a rough number. 20% down, 3.5% interest rate, about $1,850. If you were to rent in Navarre right now, the average rental price is $2,050. So it definitely makes more sense on a month-by-month basis to purchase. Again, as I mentioned before, assuming that you're going to be staying here a little bit. If you're only going to be here 6 months, it might not make sense. Although if the market continues going the way it is, you might be just fine after 6 months. Now, these schools in Navarre were rated a B+, which does not surprise me. Really, all of our area is pretty good with schools on a rating scale. Again, not my opinion, just what I've been seeing online. I don't have kids myself either, but that does give, a B+ for Navarre. So not as great as some of our other areas, but still tremendous in the grand scheme of things. And the median income in Navarre is a little bit higher at around $78,000 per household. All right, let's jump into Niceville, which is a lot of people's favorite place. We get a lot of calls on it. The inventory is extremely low, so it's hard to find stuff out there right now. But as of the time shooting this video, we've got about 15,000 in population living right here in Niceville. You're going to have kind of that sparse suburban feel is kind of the best way to describe it, to where a lot of it's going to feel like a suburban neighborhood, and then other portions will feel a little bit mixed, and then you'll have some areas that have larger plots of land a little bit further away from the Niceville center, and so you'll have a little bit of mix of everything there. Now, Niceville is one of the few areas where the rental prices are actually a little bit lower than the average home prices. The average home price is about $440,000. With the same terms I used before, would put your payment around that $1,915 range, and the average rental right now is around $1,850. So slightly cheaper to rent as of right now, but same rules apply. Equity would win. You guys know the scoop. Now, these schools were rated an A here in Niceville. Really surprising to me on that one, because this is the place that everybody everybody wants to go when they give us a call and they want to, they want the best schools. This is the place that they pinpoint. All the research points to it. So I would think it would be more like an A+. An A is outstanding, don't get me wrong, but I figured it would be a lot higher just with the amount of traffic that we get. When somebody wants the best schools in the area, that's where they hone in on. But it comes with a price, with the higher prices of homes. So just keep that in mind. Now, Niceville has two different stats that I want to mention that I thought were pretty cool. Niceville was rated as number 38 out of like 700, give or take, out of the best places to live in all of Florida. And it was actually ranked at number 2 for the best place to live in the entire county. Now, number 1 was Mary Esther, which is a facet of Fort Walton Beach. I didn't mention that when we were talking about Fort Walton Beach because it is a tiny portion. There's only like 8,000 people in Mary Esther. It was technically ranked number 1, which also surprises me. There was a lot of surprises in this video. I actually would have figured probably Niceville, maybe Destin, Miramar Beach 30A area, but nonetheless, that's where they were ranked according to niche.com. All right, now before we head east, actually, I think earlier in the video I said east, but I meant west. Now, yeah, I think I messed that up when I said Navarre. I'm not going to change it. We're just going to keep going. All right, now going up north before we actually do head east, we've got Crestview, Florida. Now, Crestview's got a population of about 24,000 people, and it's got that sparse suburban feel. So these are bigger lots, bigger homes typically, nicer homes for what you're getting, best bang for your buck out of everything we're going to be talking about today by a pretty big margin. So if you're looking for the most house you can get, the most land, but you're okay being 30 minutes away from, most of the places that you would be going to work, depending on, you might be working in Crestview. If you're not, it'd be about 30 minutes to just about any of the other bigger cities, then Crestview might be perfect for you. Now, the average home price in Crestview is $295,000 for the last 3 months of solds. That would put your payment somewhere around that $1,400 per month. Now, the rental prices are a little bit higher here at around $1,600 per month average. So definitely a little bit better to purchase. Now, the school systems were rated a B+, so not the big, beautiful A that we're looking for, but a B+ is still very, very, very good. And the median household income is around $55,000. All right, now let's take a big turn. We're going to head east this time to Destin, or I guess to you guys it would be east to Destin. Am I doing that right? I feel like I'm messing that up. Doesn't matter. Heading east to Destin. Destin is kind of the crown jewel of our area. It's what most tourists know. Most people that come down here to visit know it. Most people that find us and want to live in the surrounding areas do it because they started in Destin. Now, sometimes it's Fort Walton, Navarre, because all of these areas have vacation spots, but Destin is the big one. Destin has a population of about 14,000 people, but keep in mind during the heavy tourist months, this number shoots up. These are just people that actually live in Destin. It does not include snowbirds, does not include vacation renters and things like that. Now, I have heard that it gets all the way up to almost 250,000 people at any given time in Destin. I don't know how accurate that number is. It was sort of said to me in passing, but it wouldn't surprise me all that much because there is definitely a clear difference between the number of owners that actually reside there full time and the number of tourists that are there. It is 100 times, maybe not 100 times, that's exaggerative, but it is definitely way more tourists than people by a big chunk, by owners, not just people. Now, the average home in Destin is way different than the other areas, sitting at about $800,000 for the average property. Okay, that's the average property. All of these numbers that we're using is property. It's not just single family homes, it's everything. So please keep in mind in Destin, we have a lot of vacation homes, a lot of vacation condos that's going to drive that price up. So when we're looking at actual averages, just keep in mind if you're looking down here to purchase, there definitely is stuff well below these numbers in some cases. And then of course, obviously way above these numbers. Now, the average mortgage on an $800,000 home would be about $3,200 big buckaroos every single month. Now, that's not including HOA fees, so if you buy a condo or something like that, that number could fluctuate, and it is using kind of an average taxes and insurance. And then the average rental in Destin is about $3,400. Now, that's for long-term only. Keep in mind, most of Destin is a vacation rental spot, so it's not going to have any of those numbers whatsoever. That would inflate the rental numbers right through the roof. Down to the people living in Destin, the average income is about $79,000. So now we head a little bit further east into the Miramar/Sandestin area. Now, this is a much smaller area. The entire Miramar and Sandestin area is probably more populated, but just the small portion that I was able to dig up is about 8,000 people that live here. I would estimate it doubles when you add in the Sandestin and go a little bit further east before you get into 30A. Now, just like Destin, the average home price is about $800,000 here, which again puts your payment at around $3,000 $3,200 a month, and the average rent is actually a little bit lower at around $3,000 a month. Keeping in mind the same things I said about Destin are going to apply to Miramar Sandestin, as well as 30A that we'll talk about here in a second, and that is that most of them, are a good chunk of the population, is vacation rentals, so those numbers are going to be a little bit off when you look at the grand scheme of things. Now, the schools were rated a big B+ here in the Miramar Sandestin area, and the average income is approximately $70,000. Now we slide on over a little bit further east into the 30A area. This includes Rosemary Beach, Inlet Beach, Grayton Beach. I mean, the list goes on. There's like 12 different beaches or something, and there's just a lot of stuff going on over here. Very cool. It's about 17,000 people that live there full time, and this is more of your dense suburban style area. So suburban feel, clumped up into groups. You're very tight knit with your neighbors. You're very not necessarily close proximity wise with the homes, although that is pretty popular in a lot of these areas. They're trying to not cram, that's making 30A sound like it's very compact, which it kind of is, way more than some of the other ones, but it's not like all the houses are built on top of each other. There's just a very dense area because we've got a lot of big condos that have a lot of people living in kind of a smaller footprint because there's no yards in between, and then even the houses that have yards, they are going to lean on the smaller side generally. Unless you go north of 98, which is nowhere near the water, it would take you a little bit of a trek. You're not going to be able to take a golf cart or anything, not safely anyway. You can definitely get up there for, and get a little bit more land is what I'm saying. So as far as the actual 30A portion on the south side is definitely dense suburban. Now the average home along 30A is $1.6 million. So definitely out of the price range of a lot of people, but please keep in mind, you can definitely find stuff at the 300-400K range. It's just that there are so many homes in the 25 millions, 27 million, 30 million, 10 million, 12 million. You get the point that it is driving that average price up. So don't be intimidated. You can definitely get down to 30A way cheaper than that, but the average is about 1.6 million. Now, that would put your payment at a whopping $6,200 a month, assuming a jumbo loan at 20%, all the same stats that I used for every other area. And then of course the rental in the area is a mere $3,500 per month, but again, super skewed number. That's just long-term only, and there is not a lot of long-term along 30A. It just doesn't make sense for the landlord. So I wouldn't even use that number. It's going to be very difficult to find stuff, and when you do, it's going to be off the beaten path. Anything that's could be used as a vacation rental will be in that area. It just doesn't make sense for the owner not to do that. There are very few exceptions, but that's the gist of it. The average income is around $82,000. So out of all of the 7 different areas that we talked about today, they all have their own little personality and, subtype and their own feel to each of the cities. And then even within that, each of the cities are going to have their own. 30A in particular, like I said, there's 12, 15 beaches, something like that in the area. And they all have this wildly different personality, I guess I should say. So nonetheless, if you have any comments, we absolutely love talking to you guys. Please put them in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, smash that like button. And as always, all of my information is on the screen. If you have any questions whatsoever, we are here to help. So we'll talk to you next week. See ya.